Youth Rugby Discussion. We're a collection of current and past coaches, parents, administrators. Every episode, we get together to banter, discuss around issues relevant to youth rugby. Along the way, we've had some great guests that have helped bring a lot to the party. So please, join us. Help grow the sport of youth rugby by just being part of our community.
Hi, this is Coach Allen. I coach with the Rentham Barbarians. Chris Gray.
I am there. Yep, it's Chris. I couldn't see the screen. So, yeah, Chris Gray down here in Newport. And we've got a little youth program and trying to get some girls involved as well.
This is Chris Cuddy. I'm a rugby dad. I'm a girls rugby dad, former rugby coach for girls and boys rugby.
Yeah, Devin DiGiovanni here. I'm the head coach for Bentley Women's Rugby, and I'm also on staff at the Northeast Academy working with youth and women there.
I am Fletcher. I am the coach at AIC, and I am also on the staff for the Northeast Academy, as well as the Free Jacks Academy and the Collegiate All-American Women.
Awesome. I am Jennifer. I am a youth flag coach with the South Shore Sharks.
This is Kate McCabe, and I'm the head coach of Belmont High School Girls Rugby.
This is Olivia Benson-Daniel. I'm the head coach at Brandeis University Women's Rugby and the St. Mary's High School girls team.
Hi, this is Shaggy. I'm a coach of the South Shore Sharks.
I think you got a good sense of the intro there.
Oh dear. Okay, so what I'm hoping to accomplish out of this wonderful virtual meeting of the minds is a way to capture, like, how can we grow the game of girls rugby? How can we make it more known? How can we get the word out there that there is this fantastic sport that will most likely enrich your life in ways that you couldn't even comprehend? How can we get that word out to more girls in the state that they should be involved in youth rugby, in high school rugby, and college rugby? How can we get that word out more? How can we spread it? And then how can we formulate girls only teams that will cultivate and grow the experience for girls growing into women? And how do we do all that? What's the best way to capture that? So how do we get the word out? How do we start a team? And how can we grow that to be an amazingly positive experience?
Yeah, good.
So easy stuff.
Yeah. I think there's a couple of things I want to add to that too. One is maybe just to elaborate. One idea that you just said is like, hey, how can we get the word out? We probably also want to talk about what those words are. What do we want to say? What do we what do we think, as you described, is so enriching? What do we think is people will run to when they want to run towards girls rugby? What are they running to? How do we cultivate that message? And the other one too, you mentioned earlier, is like having girls only rugby, because I think we've been a little worried that people are running away from co-ed rugby, especially as the girls get older. And so we want to make sure that girls are running, that they know what is in it for them, and they know they know they have somewhere to go, and there's a lot of good that comes to rugby. And then the other one is that we want to make sure we're not losing kids, maybe because they don't want to play against the boys, or maybe because there's just nowhere for them to play. And we want to make sure that there are those places for folks to play. So those are my 2 cents on your intro.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, maybe one really good way to start that conversation might be to kind of circle back and say, okay, for all of the women on the call that have played rugby, and rugby has been a really important part of their lives, what is it that got you into the sport? Right? Like, what is it that made you join and continue to
Oh,
participate in rugby?
great way to start. I definitely want to hear that. I love that. Go, go, go.
Oh,
I would say for me, it was really just the welcoming. And that sounds so, just kind of basic, but it was the open arms invitation just to come out, whether the team needed numbers or, it was recruiting, whatever it was. But, I've definitely played a lot of sports, and we talk about culture a lot with rugby and having a position for everybody, regardless of your walk of life, your experience in athletics or not at all, and just the environment that it provides for you. So I think that kind of goes back, to the first question. One of the coaches here asked about what are those words that we are promoting or providing for others to really kind of recruit women in, to help them, encourage them to want to come try it.
So let me do this, without making the podcast last forever. Fletcher, I love what you're saying. Can I get a specific? Because you're preaching to the choir. I could not agree with you more. But if we're sitting here and we're if somebody's listening to this and they're trying to start a girls club, and they're thinking, okay, what do I want to do? I want to be really welcoming. Great, I want to be super welcoming. Fletcher, what stands out, if you remember, or in your experience, what do you think has helped? What's an exact example of what somebody said or did, or what stuck out, meaning that it was what defines welcoming to you?
Sure. That was a long time ago, but if
Hmm.
I, dig deep, it was really just, there is a place for you. I've never been told that. I mean, I was one of the first people to ever play, a female on a men's varsity football program in high school. I played basketball, I played soccer, just kind of probably the experiences everybody else had. But, try this. If it doesn't work, we will find a place for you. And I think back in the day, there was a thing, the intimidation of being in high school and having cuts and, making the varsity squad or things like that. But I kind of knew like this was the place for me because I felt confident they were going to find a place for me.
Awesome.
Yeah, I agree.
That
That's a
network
really
was
good
amazing.
point. I think so. And yeah, go ahead.
Olivia, I think I cut you out. Chris and I think we're both doing the same thing. Like Olivia, I think you were going to pipe in with something.
yeah, no, when you were asking for specifics, I immediately thought of like my first couple practices where everyone was just so accepting and patient and willing to help me learn because I was brand new. Like everyone on the team knows that if you're not doing well, they're not going to do well, and you do this together. So that was really important, and that kept me around. And I don't think we may talk about this enough, but rugby is fun. Like when I'm trying to build this high school program in St. Mary's, that's the first thing I mention, how fun it is, and how you get to know the people around you, unlike any other sport I've played. Because I've played almost everything under the sun: basketball, lacrosse, volleyball, and yeah.
I let me chime in here. I'm sorry. This is Chris Gray. I think we have to also try to offer at the high school level a separate program for like girls that don't want to get into contact rugby, like a flag high school rugby program, and just go with flags. Just offer flags for just to get them running with the ball, and then if they do decide they do like it, and they would want to try contact, well, contact's available. But I think a lot of girls, they're a little skeptical about getting involved in a full contact game straight away. Maybe get them into it by, I know we're trying to do that at the youth level, and it's working really well at the youth level. And a lot of times by the time kids get in high school, they're already set in their ways. But I think you'd get a lot more girls interested if you just said, hey, it's just flag. You're not tackling each other. It's non-contact, and just give it a try. And then once they try it, a lot of times kids, and girls and boys, they tend to like it. But it's just getting them into it without any barriers.
I think that's interesting because, for me, what drew me to rugby was that it was a contact sport that a girl could play. I remember in high school, or even before that, wanting to play football or wanting to play hockey, and it being a contact sport, it wasn't really the opportunity. But I heard of rugby and I knew that was out there. The barrier when I was in high school was that there wasn't a club close to me in proximity. So that kept me away. And I played high school lacrosse, and we've seen lacrosse. That was a welcoming community, a startup team, so it was easy to join. But I would be getting penalized for being too aggressive on the lacrosse field. And then when I went to college, I knew I wanted to go join rugby and try that.
Yeah, there's 50% of the girls, I'm sure, are like that. But you got to also be welcoming to the other 50%.
Or at least find a good on ramp, right? Because the way that I see this so Devin, Fletcher, Olivia, you guys are already here, right? You guys already went through the step of finding your path through rugby. And as you said, Devin, you were the one, part of the reason why rugby just really attracted you is because you could be physical. You could, it opened up that avenue for you to be able to just to do it. But I'm sure, I'm wondering if we're talking about growing the girls' sport, growing girls' rugby, I wonder how many girls are out there that are interested, maybe are not even interested per se, but they don't know the beauty of rugby yet. And the one thing that's keeping them out is they're hearing tackle, full contact, and they go, I'm going to go try something else. And I wonder because
You
it's
know,
go ahead,
Daniel,
Kate.
I'm
Yes,
gonna push back on that for just a second.
please,
And
please do, please.
this is just it's just one perspective.
Yeah.
But one thing that I wonder if you'll consider, Chris, is that there are girls that are stopping themselves from playing a tackle game because they're not seeing enough girls play a tackle game. And I think we've kind of talked on here before about the fact that it takes someone with to be in the middle of adolescence and to kind of go against a norm and say I'm going to try this thing that I don't see a lot of other girls doing takes a particularly a confident individual, and not the kind of confidence that I'm sure I would have had at 14, right? I had it at 18, but not at 14, right? But if I watched other girls playing that sport, then that would have been not a male space, but a female space, right? And so I think the reason why, and I also think that girls are getting, if someone says, "Hey, I'm not confident about the tackling," instead of being told "Hey, it's one aspect of the game, and it's an aspect that we're going to prepare you for, and you're going to be great at it, and it's not going to come easily," right? They're getting okay, that's okay, you don't have to do that. But we can prepare girls for that space, and with increased representation, girls are going to see themselves in that role a little bit more readily.
Sure, I 100% agree with you. I'm not saying that to get rid of the contact game. I'm endorsing the contact game 100%. I love it, and they can coincide. I think you're still going to continue your contact game, but also maybe during the fall, during the off season, say, hey, we've got this sport that you can play contact in the spring or in the summer, but just to get you introduced, we're going to run a flag league. We're going to run a local flag league just for girls. And that's what I'm going to do around here. I'm going to try to get a flag league going and see if we can get girls that wouldn't normally join. But for example, my wife,
Yeah.
I have a 14-year-old daughter. My wife or rugby. She's that my wife won't let it happen. And I can't argue with my wife. So, I honestly, I don't even think my wife will let her play flag rugby, but I want to have another avenue available.
That makes a lot of
And
sense.
I think that they can both coexist. I think there might be a reason for them to coexist, especially going into it. If Annalise has several friends that definitely want to play rugby, but their parents are not going to let them play contact, and that's been well established since the flag football days. So if there was an avenue for a flag rugby for the older girls, I think it definitely would get them involved. And if their moms can see how the game is, who knows, maybe they change their mind and they they will get into tackle, but the girls themselves aren't confident enough yet to do tackle, and they are very intrigued by the whole the flag rugby. I think if there was an avenue for that, maybe we would be able to get some girls, especially as an introduction to the game.
That's all I'm
I
saying.
yeah, I want to chime in here too. I completely, like Chris, I definitely hear you. And I agree. Like there have been, I've come across athletes, young girls, that are completely, on the opposite end of the spectrum there, and like no way, wouldn't even consider it. Parents feel the same. But I also have many teammates or coach many people, in Devin's situation, and completely understand where Kate's coming from too. I think, just from my experience, in the South and then here for a very short time, like I'm still very green to this area. It doesn't seem like to me that there are girls just jumping at the bit right here to, come out and play rugby. It's really hard, even at the collegiate level, to find, these incoming freshmen, high school seniors that even really know what it is. So I think, before we even get to this point, it's like knowledge is power. So it's about educating the athlete and the parents, what rugby is. It's not the game with sticks, it's not the game on a horse, right? Like this is how it's played, the equipment required, et cetera, and really just kind of have like more of an informative thing about it. And hopefully when COVID clears up, it could even be something in person where it's just step by step. And then, of course, I think that training progresses. So there would be no such thing as contact in that first phase, whatever that looks like in a season, until we got to that point. And then if people aren't comfortable and we look at numbers, or maybe even put out a survey and see where people are at.
Sure. I think you're getting a lot of young girls involved and loving the sport through flag at the younger level. And parents are loving the sport. And I think if you just projected that one level up, you'd get the same result or a similar result. More girls that wouldn't normally try would try, and a percentage of those girls would carry on playing. That's all I'm saying. I mean, not again. I mean, I'm a stubborn guy. I'm gonna try to pursue that avenue down here, and ultimately, we'd like to have some other competition to travel to. So, I'm trying to encourage other clubs to at least, perhaps look into something like that or discuss it amongst themselves, and it could be a potential girl grabber for the contact game.
And I'm like super curious. Like I'm really keeping my eyes super wide open all this because Fletcher, I think you mentioned, oh, it's hard to get the numbers. It's hard to get the numbers. And I coached lower divisions. I coached Brandeis women's some time ago, so I know how hard it is to get the numbers. And there's always that sense, that question in the back of your head of, my man, is it time to go to the next level? And I love Kate's story because it takes that whole fear that I have of like, okay, rugby's grassroots, we're growing little by little. It takes that knowledge that I have and it totally flips it on its ear. And Kate, I know you've mentioned it, but maybe you could give us a really quick summary. Just somebody's listening to this podcast and hasn't heard the older ones, or maybe Fletcher or Olivia, people haven't heard the story. I love the story of how you started your girls club. Can you give us just a real quick, because you mentioned it, you alluded to it, but I don't think everybody knows the full story. Can you give us like a quick little summary of it, of how that came to be?
Sure. So I played rugby and coached with Devin for a moment at Boston University while playing. And then when I stopped playing in 2014 or 15, I had been a high school teacher at Belmont High the whole time. And there was a boys team that existed. But because I coached and played, I really wasn't able to participate. And I didn't know how many girls, there was always like one girl on the team. And so that fall, my friend Greg, who's the head coach of the boys team, was like, Kate, could you come in and coach the boys? Like, we'd love to have you be a forwards coach, and like I just think it would be awesome, and potentially provide a space for some girls. And there were about 4 girls that had signed up for rugby that year, and I was like, yes, I have the time, I will absolutely do that this year. And when he announced, he told the girls who had signed up, he was like, yeah, and Miss McCabe is gonna join us as a coach. There suddenly turned into 19 girls that signed up to play rugby that spring. So we went from having 4 girls that signed up to play on a boys team to having enough girls to field a girls team.
And that blows. I love that. I mean, you're talking about growing the girls' game, right? So is it a question of, are the numbers, are the teams, sorry, are the teams not there that Chris wants to be able to play against because the girls' numbers aren't there, or because we're not making girl-specific teams? Now, for me, a lot of us are coaching co-ed teams, so it's very easy for me to say, oh, I've got the best of all worlds, I'm doing everything right. Growing the girls team is going to be a slow process, but when Kate mentioned that, it blew my mind, like overnight. So they are out there, it's just capturing them. Like, how do you capturing them? And I love the, be welcoming. Absolutely, I took notes. What are the things you want to say? What are the things you want to mention? What are the things you want to highlight? Rugby is for everybody. I love that video, and I'm gonna pitch it to you guys. Have you guys seen that video of that little boy? It's youth rugby. I don't know where it. I don't know where. Africa. I think it's South Africa commercial. And there's this little prop boy, and they're running practices. They're running wind sprints and all kind of stuff. You can see the kid is kind of struggling. The music's coming up to a crescendo, and finally there's like a penalty at 5 meter. Who gets the ball and who gets to be the hero there? And it's the kid that looked a little bit different than the rest of them. It's almost like rugby welcomes everybody. Can we use that as a way to market rugby more? To push that, is welcoming.
It is one really interesting thing, as people were talking about what it was that drew them in. I was thinking about how like most of the times on a college campus, when you are signing up for a rugby team, there's a collection of women that are standing up there being like, come play rugby, and like being a little crazy, and it's exciting energy, but it's a collection of different kinds of people. And I think about that a lot when going into a recruiting phase at high school. Is like, I don't want one type of player to be the person who speaks for the club, to be the person who recruits the players. Like, we very specifically are using a variety of different types of players and people from different social groups to stand up and speak, because everyone is needed on that team. Like, everyone has a voice, right? But that's a conscious choice that, as you guys pointed out, sets a culture. And so sometimes it's about selecting that non-traditional, athletic person, and making sure that they're right there and leading with the best athlete on your middle school flag team to get girls to the next level. It can't be the best always that talks for the group. It's got to be the collective, because that's what draws people in.
It builds confidence too.
Yeah.
Kate, I love that. I have to say, I love that, because I share that same experience, that same passion. Thinking back in college, it was the same thing. It was a little overwhelming, but it was really exciting energy. And it was, the tall girl, the short girl, the girl that looked super athletic, and the one that didn't at all. And that's just another part that drew me in, and thought, okay, I think I could give this a shot. And so when I'm recruiting in college, it's the same way. I get asked a lot, well, don't you want, the All-Americans or the 4.0 students? But that's not necessarily what it takes to just be a good teammate, right? And promote what rugby, the true backbone of it. So I love that.
I think a lot of this goes back to something you mentioned earlier, Kate, about the visibility of women playing rugby. And right now there's not a lot of that. So girls aren't seeing a lot of girls rugby. But I wanted to add this interesting note. This past weekend, we had a women's training for Northeast Academy. Sorry, there's some feedback here. But anyway, as we were wrapping up our session, having a high energy practice, different women out there, there were some lacrosse players coming in, probably high school age lacrosse on the other side of the bubble. And I started to notice that they were grouping up and watching our training. So they should have been getting ready for their lacrosse match. And here they were, probably a group of 4, and then separately another group of 5, totally focused on our women's rugby training. And it just, to me, at least, reflected that they were interested. They were seeing it maybe for the first time, and they were curious, at least, to watch it and learn more. And I think it just goes back to, if there's some visibility of the sport, I think that would help grow interest.
I agree. I think ease of introduction. Also, it's just a matter of once we get anyone into the sport, and show them that, it reflect well as administrators, then, it's a good chance that they'll stick. I mean, the major issue with the transition from flag to tackle is just building any kind of critical mass at the club level, anyways. One of the big issues we have is, outside of like a school situation, is those groups that don't come in mass. So if you have a group of girls that stick together and stick to rugby, they're maybe from one town, maybe you have a group of 2 from another town, but you don't have we don't have that critical mass yet, which is the issue. And just getting them involved and seeing the role models that are in place, and where they can go and where they can go, in the high school game and in the college game, and forward is the real issue, I think, because it's not clear how fun and how far they can go in the sport isn't clear, and I think that's probably our biggest obstacle. So I'm with Chris, like now. I'm thinking, any kind of ease of entry to stop any of our drop-offs from the flag in, might work. Anything that works to get one player to stay involved, I'm in for. So.
Yeah, I think something that Devin and T. Fletch touched on was like the visibility and the knowledge. So like something I do with all of my teams is I have an info session before every season, and everyone's welcome. Last spring before COVID, I had parents were welcome to the info session for the high school girls. They could ask questions. I cover the tackle aspect because I know people get nervous about it, but just having that information in front of them and, showcasing it, like the Women's World Cup. Getting in front of the kids with social media, Instagram, Facebook, things like that, getting the information out there will be the first step. And then building a program for these girls to flock to.
Great.
And one thing,
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing that I found really interesting from these conversations, and that I'm constantly walking away thinking about, is that there are so many youth programs that exist that I didn't really know about, right? Like Shaggy and Alan and Chris in Newport, all of you have designed co-ed programs at the youth level. And that's, outside of my purview, but it's how do we loop in, the reality is that what I really would love to do is loop in more, women's rugby players or, college rugby players into those youth programs, because I think that makes a difference, to your point, Shaggy, about if you have coaches that are currently playing, it's someone to want to be that model means a significant amount. It presents an opportunity to be that is a person I can be like. And it's not in other words, not having that female coach is not a barrier of entry to a 7-year-old, but it might be a reason to stop when you're 12.
Absolutely.
And that's a piece that I think, Jennifer, you've done a great job at Myro. I've really loved that that's one of the targets for this year, is to match up, women coaches with the existing co-ed youth programs, because that really can make a difference. And can provide an avenue for representation.
Right.
It's so tough for players to help coach though, because they're so committed and you know, it's really tough. I mean, I don't get me wrong. The youth game needs coaching desperately, and you know, we try to reach out into the colleges, but then you have to reschedule. You have to schedule, you know, your practices to go, you know, to work with the college teams. You know, where they have the night off, they can show up and help you. So yeah, it'd be a great, you know, team to have the college kids come and help the youth programs. But in my experience, it's just so tough for players to help coach youth rugby, just because of the commitment and time. So, you know, a lot of the you know, you gotta really get it into your bylaws where they have to donate an hour or something, you know, community service or something like that, where it's kind of like a commitment instead of just making it voluntary.
Well, and I
Some,
don't
you
think
know,
it can be. I agree with you, Chris, because sometimes help when it's sporadic and or irregular is actually not help. But like to your point, you know, I'm thinking about, and I think I've said this a few weeks ago. There are one or two coaches for the Mystic Youth Program that started as Boston University players, and one of which, you know, she stopped playing rugby because it conflicted with her pre-med schedule. But she continued to coach at the youth level because it was over the summer and on weekends. And so like realistically, she could commit to the youth program, or like, you know, girls could commit regularly at the youth program over the summer. But they didn't, you know, like they only knew about that because they had a connection to that program. If we were providing kind of more connections or more opportunities, could we get one or two to commit to those youth programs? Just one or two.
a
Yeah, like
channel, an open channel.
Yeah.
And how would you do that? How would you connect that? Sorry, I'm cutting somebody else off, but if I could just get one or two examples, you know, how do we build these? How do we build these bridges? You know, I mean, you know, yeah, it sounds like this is how to grow enthusiasm and awareness.
Well, I would say just the presentation as just if there's any local clubs, you know, just presentation as feeder programs. As there's just youth only clubs, you know, maybe you know, just reaching out to the community, whoever's closest by, you know, because the older clubs and teams have, you know, they have every interest in breeding rugby players coming up just for their, you know, for their legacy, really. To have young rugby players at a you know, in an adult event is great. So, you know,
Yeah, more of that too.
Yeah, I think one way to do that is, you know, clinics and camps that you maybe run for a week or a few weekends. Like we had a winter bubble program for middle school girls these past couple years. And I'm a current player and coach, so I get that commitment will scare some current players. So what I did with my team, for example, for Beantown, my senior club, is I put the program out there and asked for volunteers. And then, you know, I emphasized that I was flexible with people's schedules, and like if you can only make one or two, you know, we'd be happy to have you. And then you just kind of rotate or coordinate those volunteers so that those role models are coming in and out, and your program's successful, and they can see like these older players or these women that they could be someday while having some fun and getting introduced to the game, because you don't have to do contact during these clinics. You just, you know, go over the basics and have some fun with it. And I've seen girls from those clinics at other rugby events. So I consider that a success. I think we could have got more people or more girls at those events if we were able to market it better and there was more visibility around them.
Yeah, more coordination. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta say, like clinics seem like such a great way to, you know, build some kind of player base. It's a lot easier to get girls from a, you know, to a one-time event, get quality, you know, get role models to a one-time event, just to so those girls can make those initial connections.
So,
Because again,
Well,
like
right.
I said,
so these girls that participate in these clinics, are these new to rugby, or are these youth rugby players that you're looking to build a connection so they will stay with rugby and then, go to the next level, go to the next stage, go to the next stage and stay with rugby?
The last few years I've run it, I'd say I'd got like maybe one or two people that had played youth rugby before, and then everyone else had never played or never seen the game or had no idea what it was. They just kind of signed up because it was something to do, like during April vacation or
That's a
February.
great success.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we need more of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Great
absolutely.
success.
And did you, if I may ask, did you pair up with like a Y or a rec center? How did you do that for the week?
Advertise.
Yeah. So Bill Good did a lot of the advertising, and it was my job to basically come up with the coaches and like the coaching schedule and just like plan the sessions. Um, but from what I understand, he was advertising. I think he went to schools first. Uh, but I definitely, if I had more advertising power, would have gone online a little bit, like made a Facebook event or put stuff. I keep saying Facebook and Instagram, but that's where the kids are at these days. But yeah, just advertising it that way because we still got a decent number of people just going through schools and sending flyers home. But I would have loved more.
Yeah.
And did this take place in like was this indoor, outdoor? Is this in a school, in a rec center, in a field?
So we had it at the Winter Bubble at Northeastern. So there's plenty of parking, and then we also were near a T stop. So if parents are working or
Yeah.
kids had to get there themselves, we had one of our coaches meet players at the T stop and walk them over.
Okay, so you had quite a bit of support there, right? I mean, because you got to find the facility, you've got to, whether have to pay for it or just, coordinate to have that done. So it's
You know,
something that you're Oh, sorry, go ahead, Kate.
I was just gonna say that like to be the OBD's like the planning, the participation of the coaches, like all of those things are amazing. And Myro and Bill Good did put this on Facebook. Like it not in other words, this is not like that's not your job, OBD. But my point being that it was actually advertised to the youth programs through Facebook and Instagram. And I know that because I shared it to all of my families at Belmont so that their like younger siblings could go to it. And so I like shared it through those avenues. So I think in some ways there's like sometimes a disconnect between what Myro is doing and the clubs that feed into that are part of Myro. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
for example, if you didn't know about this, Daniel, like that's amazing to me. You know what I mean? Like, because you guys are running a middle school program, so maybe like there's a disconnect within that system because I know that like Bill was functionally like going crazy trying to get girls to go into Boston for this clinic because what a resource to have all these women there spending their time trying to help young girls get introduced into the game.
Yeah, it was
Touch
great
on that
because
Myro
it
side.
wasn't just
One of
my
the
team either. It was we had team players from Beantown, Boston, and Charles River helping out. So I roped in a bunch of people in different clubs, which I thought made it really special.
And this was 2 seasons ago. This was 2019
Yes, 2019.
before COVID.
We were started this year too, so 2020, I believe, as well. I
I
was
actually think
involved,
I saw some of
3
that.
years. I think I was involved like 3 years in a row. The time kind of
Yeah.
bleeds together, but
So
we're doing it.
what month was that again?
It was a Saturday clinic. I think we were trying to run for 6 weeks at a time, so like January, February, because I know we came up on vacations a lot of the time. Like we had to be worried of people not coming for a February vacation because they travel. But it was sometime in the
Yeah.
winter, so we got some
Yeah.
college people a couple of sessions too.
So the next time this runs, I want in.
Yeah, we coordinate better next time.
Yeah.
Do what we can to get it
Yeah,
out.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I think the onus is on like again, back to the whole knowledge and just something as simple as like keeping people in the loop. I mean, I also have learned that it doesn't matter where you go. Like there seems to be competition within rugby or certain programs, but I just think like rugby is not a powerhouse here in the US yet. And so we, as an emerging sport, we really need to be linking and working together and just really growing the sport as a whole, regardless of what region or what conference we play in. So if we know that if somebody's running a clinic, but it's an hour away, we have one that we're running, in a couple weeks, but we should be working together to help promote for everybody. And I think just that in itself, to at least provide opportunities, when families and girls see this, like, wow, like, this is a thing, that also in itself might just gauge interest.
Well, no, you're definitely right. I think I did see that information about those clinics, and it just seemed to be a little too far for me. But the information gets around. I do see a lot of that advertisement. Were we able to retain any of those girls? Were they able to then go from that clinic and take that stuff and then incorporate and use that into a season or a program somewhere? Was there some next step for them? Was there another, what after that clinic, was at the end?
I mean, toward the end of that, I usually.
So my point is, I mean, we have to use those clinics in order to keep them playing, point them to other programs.
A blanket.
So, Chris, this is one of the
Let me
things
figure
we've
it out.
observed is when you look at Miro and the club distribution, we have a very, very small, if not non-existent footprint in Boston. And it's one of our challenges. It's an area clearly we want to grow, but we don't have a club there. And so catching the kids after we've given them a great introduction is it's something we have to crack the code on.
Understood,
Yeah, and so.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's fantastic. The initiative was taken. It's fantastic. The inertia was created. But you're absolutely right. There has to be a catch at the end of it, where those who want to continue and go to the next level, we're there for them. But unfortunately, having clubs in town is a problem for us.
All right, and yeah, it just takes more people committed to go out and help kids learn how to play rugby.
Yeah, exactly.
It
All right,
is
well,
one
I
of
had a
those
fun time
pieces.
tonight. I'm going to sign off.
Hey, take care, Chris.
Ladies,
one.
it was nice hearing your stories, and I can appreciate everything you do as a coach and a player, and keep up the good work.
Thanks for joining, Chris.
Thank you.
Take care.
Have a good one, Chris. One of the things I was going to say is that with those clinics, it would be amazing to have like a 6-week like Miro clinic session that traveled, that went to like different areas, and perhaps like capitalized on some of those different youth programs or areas where we know, like having it start and end in Boston is like potentially really exciting. And then also having a week at the South Shore and a week on the North Shore and a week in Metro West, like it just might be that piece that entices families to say, okay, here's, like I know 2 of the 6 weeks are going to be close by, and then the other 4 are a bit of a drive, and I can do that, right? But it might pull in different kids in that capacity.
I love that.
We have in Rentham at the Barbarians, most interesting story. A girl came to us out of the blue and said, like, I just want to play, and started playing, and was actually became very, very good. And her story was quite interesting. She was with her parents dropping her brother off at college, and while she was there was these women running around throwing a ball about, and just couldn't believe what they were doing. So asked her brother, what is that? What are they doing? She said, oh, they're playing rugby. And that was her story. That's all she took to actually get totally focused on the game. And now she's actually, Devin, you probably know her. She's practicing out with the NEA, as well as some of the Free Jack stuff. So Fletcher, you'll probably seen her as well. And this is only 3 years ago. So she's lost a whole year, but even in 3 years, she's got to this level. So I think you're absolutely right, Kate. The more we can show people, the more they can see how compelling it is. And I think all of you have touched on the fact that for some women, it's the same story as it is for boys. I mean, you guys described how you got into rugby. That's how I got into rugby when I was 8 years old. Exactly the same way. Inclusion, my body shape fit, because there was everybody could fit in, and and it was fun, and we all got on with it. And I grew up in a place where soccer was the only way to go, and it's just not a great sport for me. But rugby was perfect.
Well, you clearly chose right, Alan. Good job.
Thank you. I'll pat myself on the head. I know that you meant that.
We want more girls to make that. It's funny how, I will say, as the program has gotten bigger, one thing that we started doing is, as like little girls walk by our practice and get like excited, we just give them a ball. Like, we'll just be like, here, take this ball, like take it home. And it's funny how like kids will come back and watch the high school games like with the ball. Like, these are the kinds of things that, if you have never seen rugby before, there's like ways. It's so exciting. Like, it's so exciting to watch, women and men do this. Like, and the idea that they're playing the same game, and the idea that they're at the same tournaments, and at least I'm so lucky at my program that like the boys and the girls are part of the same club, and we like do a lot of our activities together, and they can see the equality and the like relationship between the boys and the girls on the club. And it's just such a different thing than high school soccer, and it's different than high school football, and it makes such a difference. Families report how excited they are for their younger siblings to come in. Like, that is the piece that that I feel like I wish more kids had access to.
We need to do better at is providing an avenue for younger kids to get in and see how great it is and how much fun it is, and get it going. Because then we'll have a pathway. If we have a pathway for younger kids in middle school, then things will open up for them.
Yeah, I really like the was Kate's idea of the traveling clinic. I think that's it's just a first step. I think we really need to figure out the first step for the club program to build some kind of critical mass, whether it's through retention of the older girls through flag to kind of just get enough girls in one place around rugby culture, or if it's to build pods of girls in each community through clinics with pro athletes or college athletes, or but I think the clinic idea would be great. And obviously we have clubs in place that have fields to host that, and I think that'd be a good step that we can pretty easily take.
Love that. Put that on the calendar.
Yep, I'm in.
Yeah.
Sharks are in.
What do you think? What do you think about or what's your experience with the campaigns that go out that we see from time to time, whether they're international or even now, where there might be a slogan? I think in the U.S. a couple of years ago it was "Try on Rugby," and there was a concerted campaign, and like everybody was out, like all the folks on this call and all our friends are just hammering home that like, hey, we're gonna have a big rugby weekend, kind of the way that you did, Jennifer, the way that you did for International Women's Sports Day a couple weeks ago, where you sort of launched a campaign that day, right? But but a campaign that's associated with the clinics. I don't know if you all have experience with that being really successful or not, but I read about it a lot. Like when I follow Scrum Queens on Twitter, or I might follow something else, I see that, hey, this campaign, it got 100 people out playing rugby that otherwise might not have played rugby. Is there a way to sort of coordinate like a concerted recruiting campaign like Try on Rugby with these clinics? Or is that not the way to go? Because it hasn't been successful in the past for those of you who have done them.
Branding always helps, in my opinion. Branding and over marketing can't hurt. For something new.
I took some notes there, and I definitely said when we talk about how we're going to communicate, it was like through volume, right? I think it was a common theme that I heard a few times, like just just seeing people playing rugby, like you're the player you mentioned, Alan, just going out there seeing it, and if somebody sees it on social media, and if we get it shared on various venues like International Women's Sport Day, or non rugby sporting type venues, that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, but I don't know if anybody had any experience with this being successful, because it does sort of make sense that if you could focus your efforts on and just focus it on a clinic, and then on the back end having a place for these players to go when they want to play more rugby. It seems like a pretty good idea. Any
Yeah,
takers? Any
I think
takers
that's a
on
great
the
idea.
I've never utilized it, Chris, but with Try on Rugby, it was interesting because I think the branding was. I just remember being like, "Oh, of course it has to be pink," and that's such a like a me hang up of being like, I don't, like, don't give me the pink thing. It's like I went back to being like 7, and and then it turned out, like, having said that out loud, that someone was like, actually, there was a lot of research done, and it turns out that you get a totally different demographic of girls if you actively make it pink and make that okay. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, then I'm behind it totally. Like, so I think, like, there's also that idea of like, how do you get an entry point that isn't Kate McCabe at 7 years old? It's the other girls, you know what I mean? Like, that's a big piece, like, so yeah, I think any type of branding, and that's also a really good avenue, Chris, just incidentally, you can get money through things like that, money and resources.
Yeah, good point.
Let's do it. We're all in.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Alan, make it happen.
One thing I will say, like, I'm so grateful to all the college coaches on the call, because I will say, like, having done high school clinics where, college teams show up, and Fletcher, it was before you, but AIC has come out to the high school girls jamboree, which obviously will not be running this year because of COVID, but it makes such a difference for girls to see college players. I think even, they get the chance to, and I'm sure OBD and Devin, this, that like the, women's teams show up and coach, but honestly, the college players are so much cooler to them anyway. Cause like the women's players are like old. And so like when college teams are able to come out, it's like amazing. They talk about it for like days. It's really cute.
So Kate, you've hit on something. It was just crossed my mind. Maybe you must have just mentioned it soon, and it clicked in. One of the corollaries of the touring clinic, or the traveling clinic, would be, I wonder if we could get women's college players to come and just join show up to one of our club training sessions, or the corollary being, invite our players to go and watch one of your training sessions. No, so we have some girls in our club, them seeing college age girls playing rugby, the next level up from them, and the next level of talent, the next level, well, not talent, but next level of skill and experience. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, so I'll just chime in here. Back in the day, I was working for USA Rugby, and I put on the event with the national teams coming to a sevens tournament in North Carolina. And I basically had like 6 weeks to put everything together. So my MO was to go to all the after school programs, get rugby into the PE school system. So basically what happened was I would work with different national teams, have them come in, teach rugby. So everything from, the toddlers all the way up to, 8th graders. And they would just educate them about what rugby is, because the majority had no clue, but it was just really cool that all these cool people were here. And then in turn, all the programs came to watch the national teams play. So I think, it's back to somebody who made this point earlier. If college students came to help out at a clinic or a camp or something like that, they get to meet all these players. It's a cool factor. Then in turn, they get to attend a match that the college teams are playing. And then they can kind of identify with, certain players maybe that they worked with in a drill, or real, women that really just they were able to connect with, whether that be rugby or just on a different level. So I think there's definitely something there.
Yeah, I think these are the things we got to keep talking. This is the stuff that Jennifer keeps driving us to be aware of. I think it's so easy to forget as a coach that you just focus on the game, focus on the players right in front of you, without realizing that there's a positioning and a messaging that some of your players aren't quite getting because you're not one of them in some ways. I think, Kate, that you clarified that the most for me. Women coaches encourage women players, and it's not through a lack of desire on either side to do the right thing. It's just we all feel more comfortable around our own types. If that isn't too xenophobic.
Just support it in a different way.
That's right. It's all a point of reference, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's a lot there to unpack as
There,
far as. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
there's a wonderful amount of information and so many things that I think we could put into practice. I think we have enough support. I think we have a good base, and we need all the support we can get. I'm looking at Devin, Fletcher, and OBD and Kate. I think we could do a lot with, and get a good ball rolling. I mean, this conversation was everything I was hoping for.
Good
I
deal. Hey,
appreciate
I've
you
got a
both.
couple. I got a couple things that I wanted to run by you. I put them in the chat earlier, but I wanted to just mention again. We talked a little bit about how how we might start, and I just wanted to throw a couple ideas that we didn't talk about. We have talked about on previous discussions, but I posted the Wales Online article about 8 reasons you should let your daughter play rugby. I think there's a lot of good information in there. I think we could use a lot of that stuff in there, and a lot of it has to do with being strong and confident and being able to tackle anything. There's a lot of good stuff in there, but there's a couple other things that are a little bit that are quite tangible, and one is that I'm sort of appalled at the outcome of sports specialization nowadays, where you see a lot of teenage girls leaving sports at about the age 13, 14 when they enter into high school, and maybe they're not quite, they haven't been playing club volleyball or club softball or club soccer their whole lives, and they're left out because they haven't been playing at the club level, and they end up not playing any sport, right? And rugby is a spot for them, right? And this is such a great opportunity for kids. It's great for all the athletes, including those that played club sports, but it's also such a great opportunity. I just feel like I'm so disappointed when I see a kid who is no longer going to play a sport competitively or socially when at that age 13, 14. There's such an opportunity for rugby to sort of pick up the slack where some of these players aren't going to aren't going to exercise or have fun or be competitive. And the other idea that we didn't talk about is just the tremendous opportunity that especially girls have at looking up towards college in the US, and that's a really strong incentive for some parents that it should be part of our I believe it should be part of our message, unless I'm overestimating how important certain parents think help with the university is. I think that's
You
a
are
really
not.
important message. Right.
It is 100% important message that we should be talking about.
Yeah.
And I wanted to, one of the things I talk about every time that I'm on. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're good.
I think, like you mentioned, girls at 13, they're leaving sports. I think at 13 we have co-ed tackle, right? That's middle school. I think if we really had a solid girls only um, team at that age, it's really important, to see your peers. And the best thing about rugby, right, is everyone's welcome. There's a position for everybody.